very seriously.
If she didn't like it, she had to make it try right there.
That's actually kind of what I love about the show is it is sort of like.
Hello and welcome to what is probably going to be an incredible Emmy Roundtable. I'll subtitle it Behind the Funny because we've got some of the most spectacular people from some of some of the most innovative comedy shows on television, shows that are just changing the game in terms of comedy.
I agree with all of that.
I want to just sort of throw it out to the general group, first of all, because we hear so much about how great drama is. We're in the golden age of drama, where drama is spectacular, Breaking Bad, and all of that. But all of you are on shows that could be called game changers and really innovative. And do you feel that sort of in the adulation of drama that comedy has sort of gotten short shrift, that no one's really paying as much attention as they should?
You bunch of no, I don't think so. I think people tune into dramas a lot, and the dramas get a lot of attention because sometimes they're so unbelievably far-fetched from what a normal life can actually be, that it's sort of escapism at its best. And I think with comedy, people tune in, to laugh and to sort of reflect a little bit on their days and whatnot. And criticism or journalistic critique of comedy, I don't think we're shortchanged there. I mean, I think dramas are sometimes more fun to talk about because of the craziness that happens on those shows.
But do people respect comedy as much?
Well, they better.
I think a lot of people think comedy's easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's not at all. But I think maybe there's that misperception that, we're all going and coasting through our day. And yeah, sure, we probably laugh a lot during the day, but it's not easier.
Yeah, I think when something feels relatable, it seems easier to people. If they look at these characters or these situations and they think, that's me or that's my friend, there's something about it that seems sort of pedestrian, because sometimes it is comments on daily life as opposed to drama. It's very heightened. So, but I don't think that we're being ignored. I watch every one of your guys' shows, so.
I think there's also been
I think
there's been a shift, because it used to be where people just kind of liked to sit in front of comedies and just kind of medicate and not have to think. Whereas now, you look at a show like Portlandia, it sticks a mirror to society, and you have to really pay attention. And storylines are now serialized with comedy, so it's not so much maybe always standalone. So you have to really, where it used to be you just kind of numb yourself, you really have to kind of focus on the jokes, and there's a lot more depth, and seems a little more different.
How do you feel, Taylor, about that? Since you're definitely, you're on a show that really sort of straddles that line. It's called a comedy, a lot of drama. You're doing a lot of dramatic things on the show.
I know, it's so interesting. I just was talking about this on the way over here. It's like, I feel so honored to be at a comedy roundtable, and I don't even know what I think of myself. It's like I don't even. It seems like the worlds just sort of like mush and collide and, sleep in the same house, comedy and drama. So that would be my answer. They sleep in the same house. No, I don't know. I think that there's like it feels to me that like from the work that we're doing, it seems so much about the story, and that the story can veer into a place that it's like, I constantly feel like I'm living in that, laughing at a funeral territory. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really zingy. And I think I'm really curious about, humans, they're in that moment. It's interesting. So, but I don't know if that answers your question at all.
But you look at your show too, and there's some really crazy characters on the show.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you look at something like Breaking Bad, the circumstances are nuts, but you look at any comedy show and you're like, these circumstances are as crazy and nuts and out of control, but we're kind of making fun of it and finding the humor in it, where other shows are like, this is really sad, and then they're crying and it's getting darker. So it's they both have crazy, nutty circumstances.
I know, it's really interesting. I mean, I think they're both heightened realities. I mean, whether you're looking at a drama or whether you're looking at a comedy, I mean, we're looking at heightened realities, and I think it's just sort of a matter of how, like, what flavor you're responding to, like what flavor of your kind of humanness you're responding to it with.
I wanted to ask each of you about your respective shows, and Eric, I wanted to start with Modern Family, which I think it's incredible. It's unbeatable in the Emmys, going strong. I don't think it's missed a step. And could you have foreseen that the show would stay this fresh and this topical without a whole lot of major changes this late in the run?
Well, no, I couldn't have foreseen that before Modern Family, but having worked with my fellow castmates and all the writers and the producers that we have, you quickly learn that everyone takes it very seriously about how much they're interested in keeping the show good and fresh. So once the operation got up and running, I was like, okay, well, I definitely am working with a real top-notch group of people here, so I can't understand that, and I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think the public gets takes it for granted once a show's in its fifth year and you're still on, and their memory of the first season or their memory of the second season outweighs what's going on in the fourth or fifth season, and they think, oh, the show's not as good anymore, or the writers have changed. It's one of our favorite things we see on Twitter is, did they fire the writers at Modern Family because the show's not funny anymore, or something like that, where we know for a fact that nothing has changed, and we all show up to work every day to do the same work. And it's incredible that on all of our shows that you have this writing staff that comes in and creates these situations that I think, like you were saying, that are heightened moments that I think the average person watching at home doesn't realize they've been in until we show them they've been in that situation. And for as broad as sometimes our show can be or other shows, I think what people find relatable are those exact moments where life is broad sometimes, and we're showing them. But I couldn't be happier with the show and the job that I have.
What would you say is the greatest evolution or growth with Cam during first season and now? Well,
I think it's not exclusive to Cam. I think it's the arc that Mitchell and Cam are on together. We just finished this season with a two-part wedding episode where Mitch and Cam get married, and it's phenomenal that I've gotten to be sort of part of shepherding this character the last 5 years on this journey that now has led to me getting married, which is, my character is beating my real life in that department, so my character's had more of a full arc in that area than I have. But, I think that, and just finding out things about your past and what the writers can create. In our show specifically, they're very much interested in things that are real to us, that happened in our life, whether it be me being, raising pigs or playing the drums or wanting to be a clown and all that kind of stuff. So just finding out more and more about my past. But I've always loved Cam because my character, I hate referring to it as Cam, like I don't know that person or something, but because it allows me to sort of check in, to sort of be a person that I would aspire to be as Eric on a daily basis, someone who's, easy breezy, lets things go and enjoys the world and takes in every moment and things like that. So it's nice for me to get to go and play that character, because I get frustrated in the world, I think probably a little more than Cam does.
And Tony, how easy is it for you to get into the character of...
Get into an emasculated state.
Is that another...
Completely meek, emasculated state. How easy it is to get into the character, you said?
Or how much fun is it for you, or what is your process for getting into his mindset, since he's sort of the subservient?
Yeah, let me think. It's weird because I get that. I mean, if you guys get that question, I get that question about my process a lot, and I love the question, but I always feel guilty, like I should have more of a process. Maybe it's too much.
Well,
like
just
me.
think of one.
Exactly. I meditate. No, I think it kind of goes back to just trying to, I look again, okay, let me go back. Like Tim Conway was one of my big idols growing up, the Carol Burnett show. And I think I always remember that he was given, again, back to circumstances, he was given these nuts circumstances, but he didn't have to do much. He didn't have to, I never felt like he pushed the comedy. I never felt like he winked. He just kind of lived the insanity that was around him and just tried, I mean, even though he did broad characters and all that kind of stuff, but he just kind of lived those moments, and it was hilarious. You never felt like he was screaming at you with a comedy. You looked at it because you were like, oh my gosh, what if I was in that situation? And that's hilarious to watch. And so I look at Gary, and poor thing is just a lapdog to the vice president. He has no identity. He probably, worships her in an altar at home. And you just think that's really sad. And you just kind of live, like he's been with this woman since he was in his late 20s and he's in his 40s. And most people leave this job in their 20s, but he's stayed along because he has no identity outside of her. And you just kind of try to live the reality of that and those moments, and it's just, and many times it's just staring straight ahead and having to do nothing and just kind of living in that chaos. Does that make sense?
Sure. Absolutely.
So I don't know if I have much of a process. That's
Well, how much of your performance is helped also by the chemistry of those around you? How much does that feed into?
Yeah, I mean that's I think, as Eric was saying too, is the group of people that we've been fortunate enough to work with. I mean, especially with comedy, when you throw the ball, you trust that they're going to throw the ball back to you. And nothing is funner than riding that comic wave with somebody, when you can just feel like the chemistry's there and you're gelling and you're both getting it. And even in camera or in TV and film, you don't have an audience, but you can feel the audience sometimes on set. You can feel if the energy shifts or people are laughing behind the camera or something, and you just know it's working. And like when you're working with someone like Julia, Louis-Dreyfus or any of the cast, to have that trust and to ride that wave together, there really is nothing like it. It's just fun. It's really fun.
Great. Wendy, I wanted to ask you that question too about chemistry and how much that feeds in, and whether sometimes it doesn't and you have to sort of take up some slack, or whether it's always working.
Well, as far as process goes, I'm with you on that. Like, you don't know how you show up and do things some days. You just have to rally and you just have to get there, okay? But the chemistry will get you there.
Yeah.
If you know that you have the support of your co-stars, or you know that you can easily get into a groove with them, you find it. You find it, and you can find your way, and you can get on track, even if you've been in traffic on the 405 for 2 hours, and you don't have time to light your incense and chant and do all your processy things. The chemistry, thank God, on our show, I feel like Jeff Garlin is my husband, and he probably feels like I'm his wife.
Really?
Because I nag him. I nag him, you see.
Oh, okay.
And I check the kids' Twitter accounts, and I get on their cases. No, I don't. But I feel as protective of them as my family as I would if I really had kids.
Now, did you know any of them before this?
I sort of knew Jeff. I had met Jeff a couple times socially, but no. And we did not have any time to get to know each other. So our first day of shooting was the first time we all met all together. So luckily it worked.
So was there an instant click?
There was, thank God.
Which
Thank
is
God.
such a thank God moment,
Yeah.
because many times it's not that.
Many
And
times
you're just
it's
like,
not that.
oh, this is going to be interesting,
Yeah.
and you sometimes have to, I don't know, not like it happens all the time, but if you're on a gig or something and you can feel like you guys just aren't jiving, you're like, okay, this is going to be interesting. But when you have that immediate trust, you're like, oh, thank God.
It makes all the difference.
Jesse had the job of Mitchell before me. He loves telling everyone that. But when I finally got my part of Cam, we exchanged emails at the test, or no, he got my email or number from Steve Levitan or something, and texted me and said, well, you got the job, congratulations, we should go have coffee or something. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So we make a date for Monday or whatever it was, and we go to cafe in Silver Lake, and we look around, and it's a lot of couples, and we realized our first meeting was on Valentine's Day in a cafe. So that's where Mitch and Cam started, I guess, if you will.
That's such a good story.
That is.
That's a great.
For you, Taylor, I mean, just sort of the chemistry question again in terms of this multitude of characters that all are revolving around you, and what that has been like getting used to sort of being the spotlight, but yet you're sort of the maypole that everything's revolving around, and your focus or your process is sort of getting used to everything, the chaos that's surrounding you.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think it is like getting used to the chaos. That's like how she's unfolding it's interesting. I think I'm so like kind of how we're all talking about. I'm so like blown away by the people that I work with, the girls.
Well, what was it like when you all came together and started actually putting this thing together?
It was quite special. I think that from the get-go, everybody kind of felt like it felt like something very special from the very beginning. You know, a lot of the women, you know, aren't necessarily like a lot of us were just so excited to have this job and so excited by the script and so thrilled to be there and so I've just never worked in a place that feels that supportive and feels that kind of everything is off the table except, wow, we get to act together in a scene right now. Holy crap. And there's this like sense of, and I was so struck by that during all of season 1, and it stayed the same. And so it felt very special. We've all done a lot of theater in my cast. Everybody's sort of from New York, and everybody has that. Most of us. You never say everyone, I guess, but it feels a lot like a play. When you first meet each other and you're doing a play, it's kind of like, this is like my family, maybe, and you all have that like excited, like goofball, nerdy thing, and it kind of felt like that, like, you know. And they do feel they kind of feel like my sisters now. Like we've been through a lot together, and it's fun. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
I feel like I'm just like talking.
You're answering questions.
I don't know what I'm doing.
No,
I'm
you're answering
getting-
questions.
Really?
Yeah,
Are you
totally.
sure? I keep getting just
You're
like.
doing great.
Thank you.
That's
all
what
I
you
wanted
needed.
to hear. You're doing okay.
Yeah.
We're all okay.
You're fine.
We're all fine. We all
Actually,
made
if
it.
we could just get you to go this way.
I think speaking of trust too, you look at you and Fred. I mean, you guys are in every single thing together, and you have to. I mean, that has to be a serious trust.
Yeah, I mean, Fred and I were friends before we started the show, and that has to stay intact. We're very protective of our dynamic, and we will like text each other before bed. We will, after spending, I mean, you know, I've just seen him for 14 hours. I'll drive home, 15 minutes later, we're texting again. Like it has to have this this constant dialogue, basically, because it's reliant on all these forms of communication that have to take on the shape and permutations of different people. So it's like we have to figure out all these different ways of communicating that at the root of all those is love and affection. And so we really go out of our way to like have dinners and all the things that you might not want to do at the end of the day, but it's like we have to kind of circle back over and over, because it's kind of only us, you know, and we do work with lovely people and guest stars, but it just always comes back to this kind of centrality that we can't erode in any way.
That's great that you made that a priority. I think that's.
Yeah.
It's
really
so fun
awesome.
because I think when it comes down to the bones of it, that's sort of all that exists. Is like I mean, I find that more and more that communication and that space of feeling like that's safe and that I'm like held and caught might be all that really. It matters a lot, you know. The more that's there, the more I feel free and able to risk. And I think we have a very similar experience on our show too, of kind of everybody just sort of constantly being in contact, and like the openness, the channel being open is really important.
But did you always have the same sensibility, or what happens if one of you thinks something is funny and the other isn't quite so sure? What happens then?
Well, I mean, that's pretty rare, but I think that there's room for that tension in the scenes too. Sometimes because it's highly improvised, I can feel Fred pulling in a direction that I find really obnoxious sometimes. He's a very tangential performer, and he's brilliant. But he will take the center of a scene and just decide, no, we're going left, and then we're going left, and then right, and I'm just trying to follow him. And I keep thinking, but wait, the core of the scene was back here. And then we create a dynamic that I think has more verisimilitude than, you know, if we were just like, oh, okay, I'll go with you, or just that disagreement has room because we're always portraying couples and we're portraying people that have a real relationship. And so I think that disagreement helps it feel more authentic. So we just go with it. And sometimes we work out those disagreements in the scene and one of us wins.
Do you have like a structure and then you just fill that with improv? Is that how you kind of?
Yeah, and the more seasons we've done, the more we've created an infrastructure for the
And
scenes.
can you tell me what Versmiltitude means?
Oh, very
No, the vocabulary is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, all I'm learning is how frickin' much smarter you are than me.
You did really good on the SATs.
I know. I was just thinking about SATs.
verisimilitude, it's like the way that something looks like the truth or seems like the truth. I'm sorry, just the
Do
truthiness.
not apologize.
The
I think
truthiness.
that's fantastic.
That's fine. No, that's fine. Yeah.
But did you and because I think a lot of us were familiar with Fred when the show started, and when I started watching it, I saw this very great charismatic performer that seemed to be just on the same level as Fred. So that was a big surprise to me with Portlandia, that you were partners. You weren't a sidekick. I mean, you were equal partners with him, which I think is one of the big joys of Portlandia, that your presence really came through.
Well, thanks, but I think in what we've all been saying, and it's very true for me, is that when someone else gives you stage and is generous, that allows you to become an equal partner, and that's what Fred did. You know, he was like, this is our show, or, you know, when you're in a scene with someone or, you know, doing a whole series, it's like you're reliant on that kind of openness, and hopefully it's there, because those are the best scenes and those are the best moments. And so I'm grateful for him, and yeah, so.
Taylor, both you and Wendi play real life characters. I wanted to get what your experience has been with the real Piper, and what it was like first contacting her, and what sort of input she's had as you create your own Piper.
She's so great. Piper Kerman is such a cool woman, and I was sort of nervous. To me, it feels like a while ago now, but I felt kind of nervous about knowing her and talking to her, and I felt this like sense of responsibility. And the way Jenji Kohan, who wrote the show, kind of contextualized it for me is that we have our own world, and she's creating her own land of Litchfield Prison, and that has nothing to do with Piper Kerman, and Piper Chapman is a character that has nothing to do with Piper Kerman. So I felt, as soon as we set that up, I felt this tremendous amount of freedom to sort of do whatever I wanted to do, and sort of let it kind of percolate through me however it would, without, like imposing any form on it. But that said, I've gotten to know Piper quite well, and she's very open, and she's really interested in being of service in any way that she can, and that relationship is really a pleasure now. It's fun, and I so respect her. I so respect her life and the way she's living her life now, and the way that she's using her life to really benefit other people and really make some serious change, including the show. I mean, including taking, that was one of the reasons she wanted to do a show of her book. So, yeah.
How does she feel seeing it come to life? Does she
I think it's weird. I think it's weird for her. I know that when her and Larry first walked through our stages, they both needed to take a moment, because they hadn't been back in a prison environment since she was incarcerated, and that the stages are pretty intense. especially if you're not used to that. It's like, we kind of go to work and do that a lot. But
So there are essentially two Pipers now, so there's no real intersection.
yeah, I mean, I think it was funny because the more freedom I gave myself, the more she started to come into the performance in a strange way. So yeah, I mean, she's definitely inspired by Piper Kerman, but it's two very different creatures. And certainly, I feel like the longer the show goes, the more kind of our Piper is doing other things.
What about you?
I kind of don't feel like you answered that question.
I want some validation. I need it.
It's not affirming.
I need
We need to
to
encourage
make
you
that clear. Safe
What
space.
about you and the mother, or rather I guess you call it the smother, the smother. What was it like? What was it like meeting her and sort of knowing that this was going to be a person you were going to be with for a while?
Well, I didn't meet her until we'd done about 10 episodes. So that could have gone to an ugly place, Eric. That if she didn't like it, she could have made me cry right there on set, But when I first, let me backtrack a little bit. When they first came to me and said, "Oh, here's a character, we think you can do it, but it's a real person and it's my mom and here's some video footage of our family." I watched the clip package and I thought, "Oh, I can do this. I understand this woman. I understand this nutty woman." Because when you're playing somebody, when you're writing something, there's always going to be someone who says, "Oh, that character's way too broad." But we're all broad characters. And when you sit around your Thanksgiving dinner table, there are nothing but broad characters and people that you kind of can't believe. And this whole family, if you met them, you would not believe, But the footage is there to prove that they are insane. And my feeling was if we stay true to that, the show could last a while. We'll find some viewers. And this woman, she made it her life's mission to be Mrs. Beverly Goldberg, mother of 3 and ruler of the house. She might have wanted to be an attorney at some point. Doesn't matter. She's the CEO of this house. She has 3 delicious boys. Okay? And her boys are her world. She is nothing but proud of those boys, even though they're idiots. I got it.
Is it true that she actually sent you clothes that you're wearing?
Yeah.
You're actually wearing.
She was a hoarder. And that's what happened after they grew up and went to college. She just started buying things like mattresses, recliners. Someone will need a mattress or a recliner one day. Let's just buy as many as we can. They're on sale. So she saved everything, and she sent boxes and boxes of beautiful sweaters that I wear all the time. Yeah. She wants them back too.
Oh, she
P.S.
wants
When
them
the
back.
show is over, she wants them back. But yeah, so I got Bev, and Bev has given me her seal of approval, so I feel good. I just didn't want people to not like her, because even though she's a ball breaker, it's just because she loves you, We don't all say the same. We don't all speak like Hallmark cards.
Right.
Sometimes we have to yell.
But I think something we were talking about before is that you really see your vulnerability when you start losing control of those boys. Right. And you have those talks with your dad, and it's like, you see that humanness of like, this has been my identity, these boys, and they're walking away from me, and that's terrifying.
Yeah.
I think that's really sweet.
Thank you. But she's a trip.
You're bouncing back and forth between 2 groundbreaking series. What is it like to have this happening to you all at once, and taking on these 2 fantastic casts, and what was it like returning to Arrested Development?
Yeah, it was weird, man. It was really weird, but it's one of those things that I think you mentioned. I'm just so thankful to be working. I'm so thankful to have a job, and the fact that I've been able to do 2 jobs that I, in that course of time that I believe in and I'm a fan of. I mean, that's just that's amazing to me. But it was very weird coming back. I mean, it had been 7 years since we shot the last episode of Arrested Development, and then when we returned, all of a sudden we're in our costumes again, and they rebuilt the penthouse, and I was nervous. I was nervous because you can feel the expectation that people were placing on coming back, and I was like, I don't know if we can match this. But when I heard, Jessica Walter plays my mother on the show, Lucille, and when I heard her patronizing voice to Buster, my character, it was like Pavlovian. It just like clicked back in this just like nagging, terrifying, codependent relationship. And it was just clicked, and it kind of clicked back in, and it really showed that it trusted that you spend so much time in a character, then you come back, you really can. I mean, it might take a little bit, but it still is inside of you, and you can get there. But it was really fun and crazy, and I'm very thankful to have had that opportunity.
One of the things I've always enjoyed about Modern Family is that as funny as it is and as crazy as it is and how outrageous it is, it always seems to have so much heart in it, which I think is sort of surprising in a comedy. But that seems to be such a key ingredient that's made this show a success. What do you feel about that?
Well, I tip my hats again to Chris and Steve and the staff there for not being scared of that, because I think comedy can get snarky and did get snarky and sort of inside and sort of mean-spirited at times, and the idea that something can be sweet and tug a little bit on people's heartstrings. At the time that Modern Family came out, this sounds ridiculous, was somewhat courageous in the world of comedy to be that kind of risk that sappiness, if you will, at the end of our episode sometimes in different scenes. But I think the sheer velocity of jokes in a scene that those guys have, and as many things that come as rapid fire sort of make up for anyone that can say, oh, that shows just one thing or that shows this. I mean, it's a fairly complex organism over there, which I still marvel at. Our Vegas episode that we did this year, Fred was on, it was a pure farce. Like it was, and the way that third act came together, that depended on so many things from the first and second act, was just a real treat to watch happen and be a part of. But I love that we're sappy. I love that we're sweet. I love that stuff. And you know what? You can only listen to what people say to you on the street and come up to you and what they say. And a lot of times that's what people's favorite part of our show is that they're willing to do that. And of course people come up and be like, I don't like that thing. It's like, well, you're not going to make everybody happy, but I think it's a great quality of our show.
Snarkiness and mean-spiritedness have no place in Portlandia whatsoever. I mean, it's a very specific tone. Can you talk about how, and I think it was a risky concept to begin with, to sort of take the city and poke gentle fun at it, and it's very effective, but there's a real affection involved in the humor, which I think is really impressive.
Well, yeah, I mean, similar to what Eric was saying, I mean, we didn't want to be mean-spirited. I mean, we didn't want to make people targets. And I think there's something that's really keeps people, especially an audience, at a distance. When you're snarky or you're sort of prescribing, like, well, this is what's funny and this is what's silly about these people. And instead of, when we just embody who they are, we know who they are because they're parts of us, it kind of invites the audience in. It's like the audience has something to discover if there's sweetness and heart in a show. They can take a couple of steps forward. And I think in terms of building a fan base and having people really feel a sense of almost ownership over these characters and over the show, I think having that kind-heartedness really plays into that a lot. And so yeah, that relatability, I think, is something that we really cherish. And when we're in the writer's room, we really steer away from things that start to get too mean. And usually that's easy because that's just not how we write. But yeah, I love how sweet your show is.
No, thank you.
Was there hesitation or skepticism on part of the Portland government or residents or the Chamber of Commerce on how they would be portrayed, and did you have to give them reassurances that this was not going to be, sort of a humor bomb on them, but really was sort of a love letter?
Perhaps there was skepticism up top, but we film under the auspices of the city. We shoot in City Hall, and Fred always talks about like the difference between shooting in New York or shooting in LA or shooting in Portland. When we go into City Hall, there's one security guy that's just like, we go in, all the government files are there. We're in the mayor's office, no one's there. His computer's on.
I think the people of Portland are going to be very interested in this round table. They're like,
And then we shot one day at a skate park, and we had a cop there, not to monitor what was happening with the skate park kids, but because we were borrowing a cop car. So Fred and I are in the cop car.
They lent you a cop car?
Gun, computer. The cop is like 30 feet away just hanging out with the skaters. So like there's, we have, they've embraced us with open arms. And I think because we have portrayed it in a light that is loving and affectionate, that continues to be a benefit to us because we need to shoot there, and we shoot with a lot of local Portland people, non-actors, and our crews from there. So
What is that like? Because I think that's also one of the more fascinating aspects of the show, that you see these non-actors participating and just going toe-to-toe with you. What is that dynamic and experience like?
Well, I think it's about like finding those interstitial moments. I think with non-actors, there's something about the moments when people aren't talking that are just as interesting. And so when you have this background that's very real, and they really live in Portland, they don't have to embody anything, they're just there, they're just being themselves. There's something to play off of that is less about like this verbal communication and more just about their reactions or them just kind of being there. And so we end up cutting away to a lot of these like silent extras because it kind of helps. We're like reveling in that discomfort a little bit. Like our director Jonathan loves keeping swallows in. It's like you finished talking, and he's like, it's in the. But he loves that because like those are the moments that you notice, and those are the things that kind of define like a situation for you. It's not necessarily what someone said; it's what they didn't say. So the local cast and the extras really help us kind of build that world that's like a little bit off. A little bit uncomfortable, if that makes sense. I don't know.
It does. Piper, even though she's the center light of Orange is the New Black, she makes a lot of what I think a lot of people would say bad decisions. Decisions that get her into a lot of trouble. Since you have to maintain a likability and vulnerability and be sort of the audience's eyes into this world, how do you feel about some of the situations that she gets herself in and trying to walk that balance between the edginess of this character and keeping her likable and vulnerable?
That's such a good question. And I don't think I've ever thought about it from that perspective. I don't think I've ever thought about it from the perspective of what she's going through and then trying to keep her likable at the same time. That's interesting. I don't think I've ever like processed it that way. I think kind of like what I keep hearing, like what we're talking about, it's that there's something I find so interesting and important in work that I see, when it feels like there's, like listening to you talk about your character, it's so fun to, when I feel like when an actor is embodying what's going on, you can't help but see all the shades of gray in who they are, and that it's just not black or white, that people are so infinitely full of different things, and we all are. And I think that there's something interesting. I guess kind of what you're saying, it's like, I think that there's something, the more personal and honest a piece is, or I think like a character sort of becomes, the more universal it becomes. And the more that I think there's space to then say, I can maybe see a part of myself in there, or I see someone I know in there. And then like inherently in that process of identifying, you can then, I guess, forgive a little bit, or have more space around what you're seeing, and have it be less this objective experience of this person's right and this person's wrong. And that's actually kind of what I love about the show, is that it sort of like opens up all sorts of different women to this, you know, people that you may think you really know and understand, and sort of say, wait, but if I'm really watching their experience, it's not what I think it is. And
But don't,
Yeah.
I was just going to add to that. Don't you think we do that in life too? Like when you think about keeping our likability during times, whatever we're going through, if we're going through hard times, people are desperate to be still loved and longing to be loved and liked. And you know, it's like life throws us a lot of curveballs, but you still want to connect. You still want those relationships. So we're all doing that in life.
But sometimes we do things that we know are just going to have the opposite effect, and we can't help ourselves, and that's, I think, a lot of what
And I think
Piper
it's funny
does.
and I think that in the moment of making those decisions where you're doing something that you know, or you don't know, you're not thinking about the consequences, you're taking the action based on trying to be loved in some capacity. Like the action of that is having the crappy consequence is really trying to connect.
Yeah.
So like in doing something that may have negative reverb, you're really just trying to connect, and you're trying to be less alone in the world, and you're trying to make yourself feel more okay and less odd and less other and less separate. And it's funny because I think that so often we do things, you know, to that end that end up separating us more, you know? And I think that's probably like the world that Piper's living in, is, you know, taking these actions and ending up more separate than she thought so. But then also in that, you know, I think you discover more of who you really are through that process of being outside of, you know, when you no longer are maintaining a status quo and your life is no longer about what other people think of you, the territory gets interesting. It gets really fertile, I think, to think about what's really going on inside.
What's been the most, as an actress, what's been the most challenging thing for you in doing this series and inhabiting this character? What has been the biggest challenge for you?
You know, I think the biggest challenge is like really lives very closely with, I think, what is most exciting, and it's that there are so many different aspects of her that get played on, and I think that's exciting. And I also, you know, she's a woman at a very vulnerable time in her life, and sometimes I think it's scary to tell the truth, you know? And that's oftentimes what I feel like I'm doing when I go to work. It's just like, okay, I'm gonna just try to tell the truth. And whether that's turns out to be really funny or whether it's really devastating, it's always you know, sometimes you just feel like you want to like put a blanket on or something. You're like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, feel kind of exposed.
You guys are all
This has turned into an Oprah episode.
God, I know. Well, you let me talk for long enough, and I'll start to get all goofy like that.
It's like a self-help.
so closely associated with your roles, and sort of you really do have very distinct personas out there, comedic personas. I was reading an interview with Kristen Wiig the other day where she was talking about this latest movie of hers, which is largely dramatic, and playing this very poignant scene where she's a very lonely woman kissing herself in the mirror, sort of expressing her desperation, and that the audience laughed at a screening, which really caught her off guard and thinking, wow, do they just expect for me to just be funny? And how can I quite overcome that, because this is exactly the opposite reaction. I want all of you to sort of address what that feeling might be like, or what if that's a concern of yours.
Yeah, I think in season 2 I did an episode of American Horror Story, and after I went and did that, that's what I had done most of my career before Modern Family. I'd done procedural dramas and killed people and did awful things to people on TV shows. I hadn't done a lot of comedy before Modern Family, so I was happy to go over and play in a dark space a little bit. And after that, people would tweet and be like, "Oh my God, Cam from Modern Family's on American Horror Story, ruined," or or things things like that. That unfortunately for me, and how I think, just is a poor reflection upon them, because I know for a fact that was not Cam on Modern Family. I know. I wasn't over there with my hands in cuffs going everywhere, you know what I mean? I was playing a different character. So the way I look at it, unfortunately, and maybe I'm wrong to do this, is I just think that they lack imagination and could potentially be stupid. I mean, right?
I will say it takes. It
Has the
takes
potential for stupidity, my friend.
Yeah, I'm not committing to this.
No, the potentiality
I'm
exists.
just leaving the door open too
No.
stupid.
It does take time, though, when you've obviously played that character a while, and the characters I've played were pretty extreme. And after, I remember after Arrested ended, it's not like someone's going to be casting a part of a lawyer and be like, the guy that played Buster Bluth would be phenomenal. So it takes time to kind of put yourself out there and show what else you can do, and just keep auditioning and hitting it, and hopefully that other stuff will come around.
And I think it is the actor's responsibility. It is my responsibility to pick projects when I'm not doing Modern Family that educate an audience. I mean, it is business, and I do have responsibility in doing that. So whether it's taking a good part in a movie or another TV show and slowly reminding the audience that this is a character that I play, I'm very happy with it, and thankfully it's a well-paying job and I get to go and do it, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. I don't need those other things, but no, I mean, when Modern Family is done, I want to be in the position to pick and choose things that I want to do that are similar to Cam, which is affect people, whether that means freak them out, whether that means make them highly uncomfortable, whether that means to scare them, whether it means to make them laugh again, whatever it is. I mean, I've become friends with him now. Never in a million years thought I would, but Bryan Cranston's career is absolutely 100% a career. Like, I think we all would like to be like, okay, I'll take that, done. And Ed O'Neill in a different way, with having such a distinctive character with Al Bundy, and now having the job of another major, massive hit come along twice in a career is, you can say is dumb luck, but there's no doubt that those two guys have something very squarely to do with the success of their careers.
Isn't Brian's story, I thought was really cool that he did, I might be totally wrong, but I heard this, that before Malcolm in the Middle, he did an episode of X-Files, and the guy doing Breaking Bad had remembered this episode that he did, and everybody was like, what? But he committed, it was his work, and he did a great job, and this Vince remembered that, and I mean, it's a great story.
Yeah.
What about you, Wendy? What about that?
I found that some people just want to remember you the way they first were introduced to you. So for some people, I will always be a boozy, slutty cop, okay? And they don't want to see me do anything different.
I know I do.
It just, all I can say is I work really hard. I work my butt off, and yet I still feel like any minute now, I'm going to be uncovered as a fraud, and I'm going to get fired. Like that, we all feel like that. Like, it's just one of those things, like, I'm going to keep on plugging away, and every time someone hires me, I think, yes, how'd that happen? Like, I feel bad if that's what happened to Kristen. I had a similar experience recently where I did a dramatic movie, and when a certain scene came up, I was like, oh God, oh God, oh God, please let this play out nicely. And luckily it did. But I was having flop sweats thinking, oh, if they start laughing, how am I going to crawl out of here? You know,
My wife worked on SNL as a makeup artist for a while, and she said every actor that would come in always had the imposter theory, that they would always feel like someone's going to discover that I'm not supposed to be here.
Yeah, I think it's part.
And they're going to find me out. Yeah.
Has being on Portlandia and portraying all these different characters and sort of bouncing in, has that made you more secure as an actress? Do you feel confident? Do you feel that you've demonstrated a lot of your range, or is there still a part of you that feels, you know, gosh, I hope they really accept me and see what I can do?
Well, I definitely felt that at the beginning more, that I had sort of come in through this side door of, you know, of comedy, because I'd done music, and, you know, I took that very seriously. And kind of to go back to your original question, when I do music now, and more people, you know of Portlandia than the bands that I play in. So when I'm on stage and I do something and people laugh, I'm like, no, I'm trying to be funny, you know. But at the same time, you can't, with anything, whether it's about feeling, you know, fraudulent, which I think all of us sometimes do, or you can't determine what other people are going to think. So it's like, as long as you put, you know, intention into what you're doing, you can't really control, you know, whether people are going to find that funny or, you know, serious. And there's such a fine line anyway between laughing and crying. It's like your body's still heaving. I mean, who knows? You know, how can you dictate those things? So I think it's just more about what you put into it than trying to predict, you know, how people are going to see it. Because otherwise you'll just, you know, that's a real rabbit hole to go down.
What comes easier for you, comedy or music, or is it equal?
I guess it's kind of equal in that it's just about trying to connect with people. You know, it's just about finding a conduit for relating to people and for getting them to, you know, see a part of you that you aren't able to express by just talking about it, you know, or through performance or through playing a character or playing music, that people will say, like, I get that, that's me, or, you know, that's, you know, something I want to feel. So it's similar. They just have different permutations. I mean, I take music a little more serious. Like, I don't want to be in a joke band, but at the same time, you know, I guess some of the outlandish, heightened things about music are pretty funny. You know, not to have, it's part about being self-aware, you know. When you see someone that's performing that doesn't have any self-awareness, even if they're doing music, that is funny, you know.
When I used to do improv and like teach improvisation, I found the worst combination someone could have on stage was extreme confidence and massive incompetence. Like, when you combine those two things on an improv stage, it is the worst and funniest thing that ever happened. I'm going to confidently go up there and do some really bad stuff.
I wanted to sort of wrap it up by asking each of you. I'm so impressed and so awed by all your performances and all your talents, but wanted to ask you individually, now that you've achieved this great level of success, what dream is left? What dream role? What dream project? What dream achievement is there on your horizon that you hope that this might be the next, you know, lead to? Start with you, Tony.
Okay. No. First of all, that was very nice of you to say all that. It's interesting. It's a weird question for me, because I'm in this interesting place of I think I've spent so much time before I, you know, got the job on Arrested Development. I remember spending so much time looking to get whatever that gig is, like getting that big gig, getting that big thing. And then you get there and you find that everybody around you is still always looking to the next thing. And it's like, you meet film actors and they're like, oh, man, I want a TV show. You meet TV, I want to be in film. You meet theater actors, I want to do people want to do theater. It's like, it's really difficult to stay where you are. And I mean, even though I would love to, I'm so thankful for gigs. I'd love to do whatever comes on the path. it's the challenge for me is just to really stay where I am and to stay present, you know? And I know that does not answer your question at all, but I think it's like that's my biggest challenge. I mean, of course, to work with Paul Thomas Anderson would be a dream because I love his stuff. But my thing is like, I really want to just, you know, be here. And I mean, I have a gig and I'm so thankful for a gig. Anyways, that's a really another Oprah-like answer.
Such a good answer. I'll join in that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Taylor?
I disagree with that answer.
Crap.
You know, I don't even know what to say. I think that, you know, it's so wild to hear that I've achieved a certain level of success. I can't really get over the first part of your statement. Very nice. I mean, I think what I really, really, really like to work. And I really feel so good when I'm working. And stuff that feels like it's creatively fulfilling on some level, and that I can kind of leave feeling sort of like zingy sort of, you know, that feeling when you leave set or leave work and you're like, gosh, something kind of cool happened today, or I surprised myself, or something. I love that feeling. And I love it. And I hope that what I love about this job is that this character has been so illuminating to me on so many levels. I just think it's been so fun to play. And I really, with any luck, will have different stories like this in my career. We'll find different characters like this that sort of do the same thing for me. So I don't know what guise that will take. I don't know what medium that will take. I don't know what the characters look like. I don't know what the directors look like, but I hope that that kind of feeling can be woven through all of it.
Cool. Carrie?
I mean, I feel similar in that it's hard to imagine that I've like achieved, you know, that seems so surreal already to think of like having made it, because I'm still so in it. And I think part of my answer is what Tony and Taylor already said, which is part of it is just about being grateful and sitting in the moment and not thinking of the next thing. But you know, it's also about, for the next things, just wanting to have a sense of discovery. You know, and I feel so lucky on Portlandia that it is a passion project, and that sounds cliche, but whatever I work on next, you know, just to have people that are so dedicated to what they're doing, and that there's a sense of like levity and playfulness and frivolity, even if that's drama, you know, that there's just a sense of adventure. Because I think, you know, and it's more about making something that feels relevant than like any level of like success. You know, it's just like, do people, you know, does this feel relevant to people? And I think part of that is just people loving it. The people that create it love it. The people that work on it love it. So I guess that's what I hope for next.
Wendi?
All I can say is that I just hope that there never comes a day when I can't do this anymore. That's all I can say. I love working so much. I have never wanted to do anything else. So if I can do this till I'm 103, because we live long in my family. We live into our early hundreds. I will show up and put on my wig and do whatever you tell me to do, because I just love doing it. So.
Mr. Stonestreet.
Oh, I went first. I already answered. Huh? What? No. Yeah, I went. Oh. Okay. You know, contentment, personally and professionally. I mean, because I think our nature is who we are. Not speaking for you all, but I think I can a little bit. If we get into this, it's like Tony said, we're always looking for the next thing. And, you know, 17, 16, whatever years ago now that it was that I started off, I couldn't believe I got an audition. And getting an audition was exciting. And then auditions became not that exciting anymore. Then callbacks became exciting. It's like, well, I got a callback. This is good. And then those no longer became acceptable, you know, and I needed to book something. Then I started working. And it's that excitement that I had for each step along the process that I think is the challenge to get back to, and know how how much joy we got from every one of those little things along the way. Because I'll tell you, going to work on a show for 5 seasons at some point becomes a job. It's a great job, but I am somewhere 5 days a week typically that I can't be someplace else, watching a football game or being with a family member or doing something else. I'm there. And you're dealing with all those interpersonal relationships, and it is a job. So finding the excitement and continuing to find the excitement that the 24-year-old Eric had in Chicago when he got his first audition and got his first booking and his first whatever, that's what I seek and what I try to find on my way to work every morning is where I have those sort of conversations with myself. On my way home in traffic, you know, because you have to accept that there's going to be frickin' traffic every week. And it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. That's why you have a nice, comfortable car and a good sound system. But you know, in a broader, grander scheme, I want to find something to create. I want to be the person that creates taste in a situation and brings something to life through my mind and through my brain and through what my sense of comedy is. So I think in the business that's a goal, but personally it's every day to get back to the place of being so thankful and so happy that I have this job and remembering what it felt like to get my first job.
Right. Well, I can't thank you all enough for
Now we have
being
some questions for you. So
where
did you get that brown leather thing?
Anyway, you all are just so incredible, and I really enjoy all of you, and I'm a big fan, and thank you so much for
This was
doing
so lovely.
this.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.